Hey, we're live.
All right. Welcome in live to a Maize N Brew six-pack. And we are live in person, beverages in hand, leftovers in our bellies, ready to spit takes and disparaging takes at our rival. As my good friend Andy Bailey and I from maizenbrew.com, what a wonderful website, are here to talk Michigan, Ohio State, the game. My friend, you and I have made a bit of a tradition of being in person for this so that we can look at each other face to face, talk about our chances. How real is it? What kind of actual odds does this team have against what is a very, very good 10-1 Ohio State team? Excited to be here with you, my friend. Excited to talk about this. How you feeling?
Excited to be in person, man. It's Michigan, Ohio State. Nothing compares to it. I mean, this is being touted as Ohio State's best team in 10 years and Michigan's worst. So it's kind of like the expectations are in the basement, like especially coming after a national championship. And last year was winner takes all, and it turned out to be that way. So kind of feeling light right now. Normally, I'm feeling very stressed and pressured, but there's a sense of levity with this season.
You and I basically dancing around on our toes, worry-free, having a good time, having a couple laughs, because 3 straight years of winning and 3 straight Big Ten championships will do that to a man. And it feels like we're playing with house money. It really does, man. Like, obviously, this is the game. It matters. And we're going to kind of talk about, like, what it means if Michigan wins, of course. But the pressure's on them this year for a change. And, like, we talked about this. I had someone come up to me in my life and be like, no, this is the biggest game in the last 5 years because of where we're at. You and I vehemently disagree. You wouldn't trade a win this week for any of the last 3, would you?
No. Last year was the most important win, at least post 2000, because one, it validated 2021 and 2022 because of the ongoing sign stealing allegations and all of that. If you didn't have that win, it makes the previous 2 years kind of look like fool's gold. So having that one was so important, not only because of that, but also because the winner advanced to go on to compete for national championship, and the loser went on to play Missouri and lose for what it's worth. But that's why it was so important. All the pressure on both sides, 2 straight years of 11-0 versus 11-0. This year just doesn't carry the same magnitude.
It doesn't, and it's not just because Michigan isn't really playing for much. It's just where we're at in the rivalry and the fact that no matter how you slice it, Michigan is clearly rebuilding. We've already talked about the Bryce Underwood commitment and how we're kind of in like this one lone iteration of this team that we've got this year. So I think a lot of Michigan fans couldn't be blamed for thinking of this as a gap year. That being said, I don't think the players are looking at it like that, especially when you are 20 and a half point underdogs. A disrespectful number that I will put out there. I did bet. I think that's an absolute disrespect for what this Michigan team has done. And the fact that, as I've said on multiple podcasts, including our own, Ryan Day has a Michigan problem. And I think you've got to take that into account when going into this, that they have the jitters and they're the ones that absolutely need this. And 3 scores as favorites right now with what we've seen on the field is borderline disrespectful.
It doesn't add up. It's like a lot of people are watching Ohio State. I get it because they're a national championship contender. But a lot of people seem to be kind of writing off Michigan because of the Northwestern win. Like, it's Northwestern. It's them. Michigan scored. The fact that this offense put up 48 points on its own should be making headlines, and it's not. So it's kind of cultivating this nobody believes in us energy that's kind of intoxicating me a little bit leading into this game.
I'll tell you what, we got Lewis, great name Lewis, in the comments saying this is a 3 adjusted britches type of show.
There he is.
Let's adjust them the first time, saying all the pressure's on them. Let's raise our glasses. I agree. For being in the position that we are in, it is so nice as a Michigan fan to finally be in this position, because if you've been a fan for a long time, this was just not the case where you can have 3 straight years of winning and kind of build yourself that bridge. So that's the first thing that we're going to be thankful about in this Thanksgiving season. The second thing that I'm going to be thankful about as we kind of get to the discussion on the field is this is not the best Ohio State team of the past 3 years. Of the 3 wins that we just talked about right now, I personally think this is the worst of those Ohio State teams. I think that the last 3 years had players on them that I was way more scared of, players on defense that I trusted. And if you factor in what's going on with their offensive line and some of the injuries there, I just am not afraid of this Ohio State team. I'm sorry.
It makes sense where you're coming from. Like the 2021 Ohio State offense was petrifying. Just look back at the numbers and the fact that the week prior they were up 49-0 against Michigan State, a team that had beaten Michigan that year. Just, I mean, it makes them all the more scary. Overall, I feel like the 2022 team, especially at home, was better with C.J. Stroud and everything that they were doing. And the fact that Michigan's such a big underdog doesn't scare me. Michigan has been an underdog in 5 of their last 6 wins against Ohio State since 2000. Something to keep in mind with this one. So, like, although that's there, we've seen this team struggle. We've seen them lose to Oregon. We've seen them scratch and claw a win against Nebraska. So, like, it's not this impenetrable force that's to be reckoned with because that doesn't exist in college football this year. But, like, it's still a good team. It's still Ohio State. But based on what we saw last week from Michigan, this team is going to be bringing some juice to this rivalry.
Completely agree. Shout out to Tyterion Nelly. Thanks for joining us in the chat. Good to have y'all here. Look, we are fired up about it as well. Let's start there where you're kind of talking that this isn't the type of Ohio State offense that has the juice that frightens you like some previous ones. There's Jeremiah Smith, who I would say is the most frightening individual player on this offense. He's a true freshman, and he has Will Howard giving him the football. Now, Will Howard, this is the 4th most efficient passing offense as far as completion percentage. So they have done a really good job there. But you look at some of their schedule, and I'm only looking at Penn State, Indiana, and Oregon really when I look at this team, because the rest are just not great competition. So I look at those games and I look at how Will Howard performs and how at times they struggle to get that passing game going. So if they can't run the ball and they are solely relying on this passing offense, what does this Ohio State, this vaunted Ohio State offense that I don't think is nearly as good as some of these past 3 offenses look against the best defense they've faced all year?
It looks very susceptible to this defense is what it looks like, because you look at Indiana, I mean, tight game at halftime. You look at Penn State, tight game in the 4th quarter. You look at Oregon, a loss. So that's got to make you feel encouraged. Offensive line is down 2 starters and is playing guard Donovan Jackson at left tackle. Like a true freshman at left guard and a backup at center. So meaning they can only double team either one of Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham at a time. So one of them is going to have a chance to just eat at all times. I guarantee they're going to slide to the left guard side, so you can be one-on-one with the right guard, which is already a weak point of the offensive line, leaving Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore on the edges and TJ Guy chances to eat against this. And I drove through Columbus today. The wind is real. That's already going to slow down the pass enough in this thing. But, like, with that offensive line slowing down, I think that could be the secret to slowing down Jeremiah Smith.
I like where your head's at here. Yeah, cold whipping winds, as great name Lewis talks about in the comments there. And, yeah, like a lot of what you said there, our defensive line is healthy. Probably no Will Johnson in this one we're learning today. Major bummer. We'll talk about that in our own podcast. But for now, let's talk about who we are going to have on the field. And that's a secondary that's really emerging. But the defensive line here, this is no secret to anyone that has watched this Michigan football team this year. That's the key to this thing. That's our best unit going up against what you just said, Donovan Jackson playing out of position, true freshmen, guys that are like really not that sound. So, like, give me that advantage every single time. The fact that we have that advantage and we have it in spades, like, this is not something where it's like, oh, it could be a good matchup. Our defensive line versus their offensive line is a mismatch. And that's my first key to the game. That is where my eyes are at. And, like, even if the secondary is a little low without Will Johnson, I trust that unit with the amount of time that they're going to be tasked with staying on these receivers. Now, Will Howard, like, they're going to want to get the ball out very, very quickly. I imagine that, but that's something that you can scheme against. So our defensive line versus their offensive line just leads me to believing that could be a low-scoring game.
Factor that in with the weather. I would even extend our defensive line to our front 7. I think that's a big advantage. And I love the matchup, the fact that it is the number 3 rushing defense in Ohio State versus the number 4 rushing defense in Michigan. And whoever's won the rushing battle has won every game since 2000. So keep your eyes on the trenches tomorrow. Don't ball watch, just watch the trenches. That's where everything is going to be decided in this one, and that's going to explain everything. Like, I was very encouraged last week the way they rushed Northwestern's quarterback because it was very gap disciplined. They just collapsed on him, no escape lanes. Because I think Will Howard running the ball might be their greatest offensive weapon. And besides that, in addition to that, they're going to be looking to check the ball down to receiver or running backs in space. That's going to be the thing, especially if weather's an issue. So you're going to watch for linebackers covering that, watch for some zone mix-ups and everything. But it's going to be decided on the ground. It seems very rudimentary to say that, but everything in the trenches, man, whoever wins the rushing battle is going to win this.
They do, and that has been proven time and time again. There was a lot of stuff in there that I really liked. Like, one good thing I can say about Will Howard is pretty tough. Like, Will Howard, like, he'll stay in there, man. Like, you got to hit him, and that'll affect him as a passer. But I think he'll keep coming at you as a runner. Like, I think he will keep coming. Like, don't expect this to be a game where we just knock Will Howard out of it, because maybe that's what they wanted, is like a tougher guy that could just weather the storm, because they sacrificed a lot of explosiveness on this offense to make this shift to Will Howard to go into.
He's kind of like Chris Paul. Like, he's a tough guy. He's never won anything, but he's just there to distribute everywhere else and see if they can finally get over the hump. That's exactly what they wanted. That's what he's like. Yeah. He's not a dynamic passer by any means, but he's efficient. He more or less takes care of the ball. But, like, he's not going to he's not CJ Stroud by any means.
So in this matchup, they have look, I'll give them that they have the better duo this year, but I'm not going to say, like, personnel wise, I agree with that. They've got the better numbers when you look at Quinshawn Judkins and you look at Travion Henderson. They've had good numbers. Their schedule much easier than ours. I'm more looking at what did those guys do in big games, and you can slow down this rushing attack. And I expect All-American level Mason Graham and All-American level Kenneth Grant. We'll see where it all ends up, but all Big Ten level for sure.
Yeah,
like those are first team, second team, all Big Ten level defensive tackles that this young, inexperienced offensive line is going to try and run through, and the rushing battle tends to win. So
you're going to see a ton of runs to the left side of this thing. So watch out for that schematic wise. If you're into the X's and O's, they're going to be looking to run behind Donovan Jackson, because that's been one of the issues with this team, is that all the injuries have come to their strong side. The right side has been weak all season, or weaker, I should say, to be fair. But they want to run behind Donovan Jackson, so they're going to be trying to go into that direction. So it's like, okay, how do you manage double teams? How do you manage this? We've seen them being slowed down, but we've also seen them being stubborn. You look at the Nebraska numbers, I believe they ran the ball over 30 times and passed it under 20. If this game is within a touchdown in the fourth quarter, Ryan Day is going to take over.
Ooh, mama.
He is going to start airing the ball out, because that's what he does. That's what he's comfortable with. That's his safe zone. So another thing to keep an eye on is that we've seen them kind of fall into this before. Like when push came to shove against, Penn State, they found a way. They should have won that game by multiple scores. There were some weird mistakes. But Oregon, you see them kind of fall apart a little bit when it gets close. So keep an eye on in that with the rush pass balance with this Ohio State team, because I think Michigan's goal is to make them go the length of the field, dinking and dunking. And if they can do that and earn every point, okay, I think we're going to kind of live with that. But they want to take shots. They want to run the football. This is Chip Kelly's offense. And I'm very interested to see how it happens, how everything comes together in the fourth quarter, if that's not going according to schedule.
Yeah, man, well said. And of course, it'd be nice to have Will Johnson in there for that exact reason. That it's Sherwood, who's out with what sounds like turf toe. Not going to speak on that here, but I think a lot of other things that you said there. Look, you're a fan of the great film Miracle, elite sports movie Miracle, chronicling the 1980 Olympic hockey berth, where they get into the final minutes against this unbeatable Russian team, and because it's a close game and what they didn't expect to be a close game, they panic. And that is what would happen with Ryan Day. So everything that you just said there is completely apt. That force this thing into a close game in the fourth quarter, that pressure that we're talking about, how it's all on them. If they can't get out to a comfortable lead and this thing gets down to a fourth quarter game, oh mama, like Ryan Day's going to feel the weight of that. And you're right, there could be panic decisions, because all of a sudden he's coaching for his job. He shouldn't be, like, in my opinion. I think this is a great coach, and like, where else do you go to get better than that? But the fact of the matter is, like, tough crowd there in Columbus.
If they lose this game and don't win the national championship, he's probably gone. Yeah, he's gone. You can't lose to the on paper worst Michigan team in 10 years with the on paper, in their opinion, best Ohio State team in 10 years and keep your job. It just doesn't add up in Columbus, and we know how the expectations are there.
Yeah, the expectations are insane. Got some good stuff from Great Name Lewis there, and Titurion saying Steelers-Ravens game kind of feeling there.
Oh, I like that.
I kind of like that comp. Yeah, I kind of like that comp where it's like, you think that the Ravens are better, but it's like, I don't know, man, that's a good organization there in Pittsburgh. And
it's a fist fight. It's going to be a fist fight in the trenches.
That's why I think the 20.5 spread is insulting.
Too much.
And I won't be offering gambling advice too much again on this podcast after locking in on, was it Fresno State all year? Yeah, whatever.
We all have our misses.
We have our misses. Trust me, I lost myself in that one too, so I don't feel good about it. But I bet on this one. I was like, that's insulting that it's 20.5.
It's the first double-digit spread. Maybe 21 closed at 10, maybe. But I think it was a touchdown on the road. But it goes back to 2017, I think, was the last double-digit. And it's like, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
It just doesn't add up. Like I said, it doesn't really matter that much. 5 of the last 6, Michigan's been a dog in their victories. But like 20.5, when I saw that, I was okay. Nobody watched last week.
Yep. Real quick before we switch over to the other side of the ball, the secondary, which I have just been lauding for the last couple of weeks. If it's without Will Johnson and Jair Hill, maybe in the doghouse based on what we saw with a number change to clearly a lamer number. 35 is objectively lamer than 20.
That's fair.
Like objectively lamer.
No pushback.
No pushback on that one there. So we don't know what's going on in the secondary, but we've been extremely impressed. This is a big ask of the secondary. Jeremiah Smith is going to be a future stud in the NFL. He's a current stud. He's their leading receiver. Abuka, not too far behind him, who like you and I were terrified of a few weeks ago.
Yep.
We feel a little better, but like this is still advantage Ohio State here.
It is, but honestly, after Will Johnson missed Northwestern, I was good. I don't want to bring a person back that's missed almost 6 weeks of ball and be like, okay, guard Jeremiah Smith. That seems like a tough ask, especially with a unit that's building confidence and building rhythm, especially when you could put Zeke Berry on the outside, who's been a much better boundary corner than nickel. I think you just roll some safety help over the top. That I just feel so much better with that, especially with the momentum and everything. Like Will Johnson, if he played Northwestern, I think I'm all for it. Bring him in. Let's do this thing. But without him, it's like, okay, this unit's held up. They found resilient. Shout out to Wink Martindale. Shout out to the players for finding a way to handle it. But, like, it's not the end of the world. I kind of came to terms with this last week.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. This is an okay secondary. We're about to find out just how good they are. So this is going to be a little bit of a learning experience. You and I think Mason Curtis, Brandon Hillman, Jair Hill are pretty good and could trend towards being upside. There's certainly upside. There's no question about that. How good are they right now? Well, we're about to find out. We are about to find out. And like there's the bad version of that, which is the Brandon Watson version.
Great
where
call.
Like we think that guy's pretty good. And then he goes up against real players. You're like, that guy's not very good. So there's that version of this. Or there's these guys really step up, and it's like, damn, Zeke Berry is kind of challenging Jeremiah Smith out there. Like, what do you think the matchups look like? Obviously, like anyone knows that watches real football, it's not going to be one guy versus one guy the whole time. But like, give me some matchups in their pass game and our secondary that you're looking at.
So Michigan's been running a lot more cover 1, cover 3 variations just to bring the extra safety in the box and help out in run support. But with this Ohio State offensive line, I think we might be able to get away with more cover 4, cover 6, which in layman's terms is 2 safeties. Yep. So an extra player back there, and that could do a lot of things. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to put Zeke Berry on Jeremiah Smith. Don't panic. And they're going to put a safety over top of him and then isolate on the backside a little bit more. So he's always at least double cover so you can take some gambles, take some risks, get physical with him. Like he's a true freshman. Like Zeke Berry and players like that are going to take that personal.
Zeke Berry's big, man.
Zeke Berry's an Oakland kid. Played
tough.
Safety, like tough.
Yeah,
kid,
we like him as boundary, right?
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
I like him as boundary. I think he's going to be very physical with him. We're going to have the safety shaded over the top. And I think they're going to be able to mix and match some things. I think the creativity on Wink Martindale will really be tested in this. And he's smart enough to understand that. Like he's discovered that all season. So I think you're going to see a lot of rolled coverage over to his side. They're going to get Will Howard some looks he's never seen. I can promise you that. I mean, Wink Martindale was confusing Jason Kelsey in his last year there with coverages. Like they're going to do the same thing with Will Howard. He spoke in Inside Michigan Football this week. They've only done about 25% of what he has in the playbook. So there's a lot more to dive into. But I think, as he said, though, as well, they're going to keep it simple. They're going to do a lot of things they can do fast and they can react to. So I think you're going to see some road coverages. You're going to see some isolation on the backside. I think it's all going to really come down to in the pass game is your boy, Makari Page, against the Mexico Buka.
Wow, that does not make me feel great. But look, Makari Page, I've seen Makari Page be a pretty good football player when surrounded by other good football players. There are other good football players in the secondary.
Yes.
Like, we're not sure exactly who those guys are yet and to what degree they are. Like, if you had to bet on one guy in this secondary that you've seen that's currently starting moving forward, who's the guy that you're like, I feel the most certain about?
This is going to shock you. I mean,
Mason Curtis?
if you talk about this freshman, I feel really good. I like Mason Curtis a lot. It's probably Mason Curtis, but like the multiple reps I've seen in only limited action after switching positions on a dime, Zeke Berry boundary.
Wow, that will shock me. There's the biggest switch of all time.
Well, because he was playing out of position. I mean, I guess Davis Ward wouldn't play so well at left tackle if you played him there, right?
This is Good Charlotte recording Lifestyles of the Rich and the Famous, and then the one guy marrying Nicole Richie. Like, this is a swing.
This is a swing. It happens. Like Zeke Berry was playing out of position. He was a horrible nickel. I've said it. I'm not on his Christmas list.
No,
he has left me.
He doesn't care for you.
Boundary the last 3 games, he's been outstanding, and like he's been so good. Even when he doesn't have his head around, he's in perfect position. And like the fact that he can do that on the drop of a hat, it's like, what can you do the whole offseason actually practicing the technique?
Fascinating.
So that makes me very encouraged because I've seen a bigger sample size and I'm not just projecting freshmen.
Fascinating. I'm still in on Jair Hill. Jair Hill's going to need to be big in this game. We need Jair Hill, whatever confidence maybe was lost, whatever was going on there. If Will Johnson's not going to play, which we'll talk about where Will Johnson stands in the pantheon of things.
That's an offseason discussion.
It's an offseason discussion, but when we're talking pantheon stuff, this stuff matters. Yeah. So
it's Ohio State.
It's Ohio State, man. Like turf toe all season. You're out. All right, whatever.
Okay,
Whatever.
Okay,
you know what?
Okay.
You know what? I don't know the severity. It's not for me here to talk about. Let's switch over to the other side, shall we? Is there anything else we need to touch on here?
I think we covered it. I mentioned Will Howard running the ball. I mentioned running back out of the backfield, so watch for that. I really just think, man, with the wind conditions and everything, again, it's just going to come down to simply in the trenches. But flipping to the other side of the ball, it's going to be the same issue for Michigan running the ball against this Ohio State front.
No doubt about it. That's probably it's not probably. It is the strength of their defense. Whilst I like at least one of their linebackers a great deal, it's definitely up front. The secondary does not scare me at all, but that matches up well for them. We're not passing against this team. Like, we need to keep the pass a part of our offense, but this is going to come down to the running game. What are we talking about here? This is what we talk about every single year when we do this thing. That's why we're starting with the trenches. That's why we're focusing on the trenches. Will we be able to run the ball against this defense? It all comes down to that. Yeah. It really does. Like, I'm bullish on our ability to, but this is where I look at their skill talent. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. Tyleek, JT, Jack Sawyer. It's pretty good. It's pretty solid there.
It's very solid. And man, they've had an issue with getting some pressure. So they've been blitzing more. Keep an eye on Jim Knowles overcorrecting in this game. Like, if something happens well for Michigan offensively, just anticipate what you would do in a video game to overcorrect. It's like, hey, he has a lot of time to pass. Let's engage 8. Let's do that. That's kind of how Jim Knowles has been calling this thing. He's really been getting away with it because offensive coordinators have been slower to adjust. So keep an eye on that. I'm encouraged by Michigan's ability to run the ball a little bit in this one because of the institution of RPOs last week against Northwestern. We talked about it with the bubbles. They ran a few plays a couple different times. The insert zones where they just bring Marlon Klein from inline around into the gap to lead block. It's very nuanced. Normally, it's a tell to have them off the line of scrimmage and doing the same thing. So they're adding some different elements. And also in that Northwestern game, you saw this offensive line get confident. You saw they could do a little bit of confidence.
Here we go.
And get some momentum forward and get some blocking. So, like, as the defense goes, as the offensive line goes, as the RPOs go, I think you're going to see some chances in this game, especially against Ohio State's second rotation defensive line, where they've left a lot of gaps.
Yeah, I mean, you just hit on it there, and Ty Wright said in the comments, O-line is the X factor, and there it is. And here we are. Because the way the offensive line played against Northwestern last week pretty much resembled what we said in our preseason pod of, like, the success path for this team. We're like, good offensive line play, good running, and okay.
Makes every position better.
Every single thing improved. the time all of a sudden, like you're just like, oh, not only are we just winning, we're blowing them out, because that's how it works. It's just a little bit of this coupled with that great defense, where that great defense isn't allowing them to have long drives. And it's like, no, I'm going to keep giving you opportunities. What will you do with those opportunities? When the offense can just take advantage of the ample opportunities given to them by an excellent defense, you change the math of the game. You change the time of possession. You change like who's getting more rest. And Jim Harbaugh learned that long ago, and he's proving that it works in the NFL too. Which, like, I was questioning. I was like, was that a flash in the pan at San Francisco? Will this work again? It works at all levels of football. This is fundamentals of football, as Jim Harbaugh has proven. Control the line of scrimmage, control the pace of the game. Let your defense get rest and let them be able to make plays late in these games. And the offensive line will allow them to do that. That is the key to the game. It is the key to the game. If they play as well as they did against Northwestern, I don't think we'll just cover the spread. I think we can win. I think we can win.
I love that. I love that. And in addition to the RPOs Northwestern, I really liked the addition of running backs and tight ends chipping edges to help out the weak spots of the defense. I think running back pass pro is going to be on high alert in this game. That was something Indiana couldn't adjust to. So like they had a lot of weird blitzes, kind of a lot of stunts coming through the same gap with two guys. Running backs have to be on high alert. So if running back pass pro can get those, that'll give Davis Horn just enough time just to make the 5-yard crossing route that could expand 20 yards. You don't need to be pushing the ball down the field. You just got to be giving your playmakers the ball in space.
Exactly. And Davis Warren, look, we've made it pretty clear what we think about him. I think a very good second option at quarterback. I think a good backup.
Again, he's improved all year. It's very hard to get a true evaluation because of a bad offensive line and the pass catch and everything else.
I agree.
But like, he's shown progression, and keep in mind, this is the first time he has started a football game in 5 years.
Yep.
Was this season. So it's like, imagine taking 5 years off from potting and coming back, like how bad we'd be.
How rusty we would be.
So, like, keep that in mind. But no, a fine backup, but more than capable of the quarterback at Iowa that got benched even though he's cleared to play. So let's keep it a buck here.
And look at some of the really bad Michigan teams under Brady Hoke and in years where it's like this team shouldn't be hanging around. And they were. Under John O'Korn, this team hung around.
This team was up 14-0 with John O'Korn.
With John O'Korn up 14-0. And like, give this team that we currently have a 14-0 lead.
It might be over.
That's what I'm saying. Like this current team with a 14-0 lead, way different than that team.
Yeah.
So great question here from Lewis Great Name. So do we have more optimism going into this game or 2021? That's actually a really good question.
21.
I'll say 21.
But
we're on a roll.
21, we were on a roll, especially coming off all the kind of the momentum, the Blake Corum factor of it all, the building back after the loss. I think the Penn State win, the air call on a snowy day was after the Michigan State game.
Yep.
So that kind of built into it. And just get a little bit more established.
Yep.
That's what I would say is the difference on the ground. If this were 2 weeks ago, you and I would have had a lot more negative. But post Northwestern, seeing the offense take a step, it's like, okay, there's a window of opportunity here.
Yep, had to see it. So let's start to get into this here, man. We're at 28 minutes here. Let's talk keys to the game on offense. We're on the offensive side of the ball. Let's stay there. Floor is yours.
All right, I'll go first. We can go back and forth. Number one, as I said before, I've said on multiple podcasts, win the rushing battle. Heavy RPO approach is a necessity to do this. You have to keep those safeties honest. You make them tackle in space. You make them play the full length of the field and give this offensive line a chance. Like, they're not just the offensive line that can dominate in space on their own. You got to help them out a little bit. And I think the game plan we saw last week will open that up. Also, I think it's going to open itself up to just maybe some slight trick plays. I think you're going to see some receivers blocking and then going out in space for a longer pass and things like that. Because as you know, as I've told you before, make sure you run your trick play before they run their trick play.
Let's start here. I think if Michigan plays their best offensive line day of the season, they will win. I think if they play as they did against Northwestern, they can win. I think if they play slightly better than they played on average all year, this is a coin flip game. That's how close I think this is. I think 20.5 points is disrespectful. That is saying that, like, JT, so they're betting on this Ohio State defense to absolutely shut down this Michigan offense, which I understand. It hasn't been great.
But again, we scored 17 points at a bad time against Oregon's defense.
That's what I'm saying. And we're in a better place than we were. I think we're feeling ourselves a little bit more. I think we know who we are. I think we understand things a little bit more. I don't know who's calling plays. That maybe Sharon Moore's calling plays. But I think that it's ridiculous to think that Michigan can't cobble together this offense for a day as we've seen it in 2014, 2017. Way worse. Like, this is a lack of understanding of history of how this game goes. This is the game, you bastard. This is a game that will always matter. They're going to get up for it. Michigan's going to be up for it.
I hate the notion going around among certain people that are like, this game doesn't matter for Michigan. What do you mean it doesn't matter? This is the biggest rivalry in all of sports. Of course it matters. It matters personally if you're in that locker room. I don't care if you're going to be a first-round pick or if you're going to be selling insurance for State Farm next year. This game matters. It's Ohio State. Like, have we lost our gumption about rivalries here?
Who's the most important single person on the offense tomorrow?
Dare I say Greg Crippen?
Whoa! Crippen minutes are back. I agree. I had this take last week that without a good center, without a great center, a good center doesn't get it done for this Michigan offensive line.
Best game
it's got to be a great center. I agree. It is Greg Crippen, the linchpin of this thing.
If Greg Crippen is on his P's and Q's, capitalizes off his game against Northwestern, it makes Davis Warren's life easier. It makes the offensive line's life easier, and I think everything flows through him. Absolutely.
Like, who are we thinking is wanting a bad game the most, like a good game the most, excuse me? Who's sitting there like, just like, no, I need this? Who's chomping at the bit? Is it Donovan still?
It's Donovan.
Still Donovan?
It's big game Donovan.
Yeah.
Because like he got his touchdown on his final touch in the big house, but like, what greater feeling to end your Michigan career with where it kind of sparked. Like, this has been his thing. Like, you think back even in 2021 game, he had the one-handed catch on the sideline. That was a big moment. In 2022, over 200 yards. Last year, played a key part with the pass to Colston Loveland. Like, Donovan Edwards has always had a factor in these games. You know he wants one last memory.
Who's an X factor on the offense? Yeah.
Davis Ward.
Yep.
It's got to be Davis Warren. He is, like we talked about, Greg Crippen is the most important. It's got to go to Davis Warren next. He's touching the ball every possession. He's got to maintain it. That brings us to the next key of the game. You have to win the turnover battle +2. Not +1. You got to win it +2.
I like this. I was going to do a similar take here. Like, you don't just need to win it. You got to own it.
You got to own it. You have to give that offense multiple opportunities. Maybe they mix in Alex or some more. They talked about wanting to do that, but not having the right time, which I did like from Kirk Campbell, not feeling the game more, which I like. But like, maybe there's some opportunities for him to run the ball in this. But like, if Davis Warren can just make the right throws, like, that's going to do a lot. And then just pressure Will Howard, force him into a couple. He'll give you some. He's throwing 6 picks on there. You get a little loose with it. Get you some more, but they got to be +2.
I'm looking at Marlon Klein and I'm looking at Hogan Hansen. If Colston Loveland's not going to play, basically everything we have in the passing game is designed to go to the tight end. So I would say, rather than try and come up with some new stuff, just run that same stuff and hope that Marlon Klein can have the best day of his life.
Yep.
Like, because at this point, that's a big loss. Colston Loveland's a bigger loss than Will Johnson at this point because we've been getting by without Will Johnson. Colston Loveland has been a massive part of this, and now they're not optimistic about Colston Loveland coming back. Give me a tight end's going to step up. We've recruited the position well. There's a lot of guys there. Pre-score. Where you at, buddy? Like, where are these guys at? At this point, it's Marlon Klein or it's Hogan Hansen. Someone's got to step up. Someone has to step up as a pass catcher, because as much as this is about our running game, we talked about it last week. The ability to throw the ball on first down opens up that running game, and the ability to keep them guessing. So maybe you run on first down the next time, and then you're throwing for 6 yards, and like, you're mixing that up. It's like, okay, they can throw, not deep down the field, but they can throw the ball. That's going to open things up. And then, like, I don't expect any deep shots from our team in this game.
I expect a couple.
Do you?
I expect some back shoulder.
You expect us to hit them?
No. It's the Joe Flacco offense. I expect back shoulders against Davidson Igbinosun.
It's the current NBA Tobias Harris shoots from the corner, even though he doesn't make them. It's like, but he will shoot them.
I expect draw a flag.
Okay.
Because David Igbinosun is the most penalized corner.
We don't have a receiver built for that.
Most penalized corner in college football. If you throw back,
yes, he is. That's a great point.
If you throw back shoulders, that's going to draw those.
Yep.
Because he's going to get handsy as he has all season. I think that's the way to get him. So, like, although you're not going to hit these deep shots, if you can put the ball within the vicinity of 5 feet, you might get a holding penalty.
I mean, that's more of an NFL strategy.
That's what I'm saying. That's Joe Flacco.
Yeah,
so that's the approach on the outside there. But offensively, I love what you're saying about, like, this is the game where stars are made. Like, you look back to, like, Jim Mandich. Like, you look back to everybody. The reason tight ends were 88. Give me a break. You look back to John Colazar winning the games on special teams and on offense. I believe it was 86, 87. Like,
cool them off.
This is the game. Like, I just hate, like, a lot of modernization has diminished rivalries and tradition. But, like, if we didn't have tradition, then Christmas would be celebrated in July and in December. Like, you have to have that tradition. And Michigan, Ohio State, the game on the Saturday after Thanksgiving at noon, like, this is a chance to just be immortalized. Like, think what Cornelius Johnson would be in our history if it weren't for the 2022 game. Like, it changes everything. And that brings me to my last key of the game. Don't beat ourselves. Make it a four-quarter game. Like, let them beat themselves. Do everything right. Check your P's and your Q's. If you lose, the best team at the end of the day wins the game. Just don't beat yourself.
Well said. I won't say that my blood is pumping, but I will say that I need to go probably check myself into a hospital after hearing that live. Good stuff there. It's outstanding stuff. Everything you said is completely correct. Everybody here, everybody on this team has a chance to make themselves a legend. This is a team that had high expectations coming in that still has a lot to play for, including their pride and also maybe sending Ryan Day out of town. Entirely possible. And whilst this isn't going to get us into the playoffs, it is certainly going to set a precedent and really start to build momentum toward next year, which you and I are already starting to say, like, oh, next year's team probably should make a run at it.
Yeah.
Like, we're already starting to say that you bring back not a lot, but you bring back enough. So, like, this game, it for sure matters. Ohio State is dramatically favored, based on something that you and I don't agree on.
You have nothing to lose in this game.
Nothing to lose. And there's a lot of young guys we've recruited well over the entirety of the Jim Harbaugh era. There are young guys that are willing to step up. And if the offensive line, like I said earlier, that's my number one point. If the offensive line plays their best game of the season, we will win this. I will say my other keys to the game. Do not turn the ball over. It's not just win the thing, because I've said that every single time. Just don't. Zero turnover game, and let Zavada cook.
Yep.
That's my other point. Zavada is a weapon. Be willing to kick it from 56 and let them know early on. You get there, be like, we're kicking every time we get to 56. Go up 3-0, kicking it from a 56 yarder, and just be like, we'll do this all day. Yeah. You've got to go against this defense. Have fun. Mason Graham is out there just gnawing on a deer's leg.
And just know it gives the defense motivation every time. Like, hey, if a drive ends in a kick, it's a good drive because it's not a turnover.
I'm completely with you, man. All right, it's time. Players of the game and predictions. Let's get into this.
Players of the game, sir. You I don't want to steal them. I don't want to steal them.
Well, let's be honest here. This one seems pretty real to me. On offense, we win this game the Biaka Batuka Haskins way because we are not favorites. So this is a Kalel Mullings on offense game, but that opens things up for Donovan Edwards, as we saw in Columbus a few years ago. Season him up a little bit, hit him with some body blows, and then right to the jaw. I could see a combination, but it's gotta be Kalel Mullings in my mind. And on defense, it's gotta be Mason Graham. I'm not gonna overcomplicate this. Well, come on, what do you expect? That's why you let me go first, is because we know where this is going. It's Mason Graham. Be the player we think you are. Be the player I actually know you are. I have zero negative comments about Mason Graham's season. He's played like an All-American. Is an All-American.
He is a finalist for the Outland, a finalist for the Bronco Nagurski Award.
Good, man.
He's the best defensive tackle in Michigan history right now.
Whew.
Period.
Sauce.
Period. I don't say that lightly because I like to protect my history.
I understand.
That's very
saucy.
Looking at this game, I've gone back and forth with my players. You stole my defensive one, rightfully so, because in this game, stars got to be stars. I'm going to go with the guy that's going to be single-teamed all game long, Josiah Stewart. Defensively, Donovan Jackson has only played left. He never played left tackle in high school. He's only switched out there this season out of necessity. Good player. Knows what he's doing in space. Held up well against Abdul Carter. Gave up a sack against Penn State. Josiah Stewart, has an opportunity to eat in this game, has an opportunity to be a first-round pick in this game, has an opportunity to do a lot of things and shift the momentum because as we saw against Nebraska, once Will Howard gets hit from that left side, he doesn't want to get hit from
It
that
doesn't
left
like
side.
it. Doesn't like the flamethrower.
I can tell you it's going to be cold in Columbus tomorrow. So hits are going to count like double. So give me Josiah Stewart on defense. Offense, feel like I'm kind of counterbalancing you here. Give me Donovan Edwards. It's big game, Dono. And what game gets bigger than Ohio State?
What are we doing? It's fine. I understand. Like, what are you going to pick? Like, all of a sudden, Samaj Morgan breaks the game?
And honestly, it's a coin flip. Who throws the pass first, Donovan or Khalil?
Oh.
We see passes each year. Khalil in 2022 on a play that nearly broke my brain and broke us spiritually because we didn't know what was happening. And then Donovan Edwards last year in a game that we saw live that just blew us away as well. So watch out for both of them having an impact on the ground or through the air.
Look, I reference the Mullings pass in like everyday lexicon to people who are like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, that's crazier than the Mullings pass. Like when I see someone cut me off in traffic.
These KPIs are ridiculous, sir. It's like the Mullings pass. They're like, what are you talking about?
I'm like, the Mullings pass.
Mama now. You know what I mean.
The Mullings pass. Obviously, you know what I'm talking about. In the comments here, great name, Lewis. D-line has to hit Will Howard early. Tyler Wright, linebackers are X factors. I completely agree.
Yes, especially in the pass defense, guarding those backs out of the backfield. Completely agree.
Yep, I agree. And then kick and checking D-line has to get pressure all day.
Dude,
I agree.
They're the smartest listeners.
We do. This is great.
You guys are well versed
on it today because
I know.
So I do the. I will be going live along with Andy Bailey
this Saturday
for Bleacher Report. We'll go live immediately following the game. Yeah, and sometimes those listeners they say things. Let's just leave it at that. But no, this is great stuff in here, and I agree. Kick and chicken. When you have a name like that, though, and I have to address you as a person, that's where I lose it. But yes, I agree that the D-line can't just be hit or miss. It has to be, they have to own the game. They're the best unit in the game. That's the biggest advantage Michigan has in the game is their D-line or our D-line over their offensive line. So yeah, it can't just be play on, play off.
Got to be 2 All-Americans, 2 first-round picks against a revamped, reconstructed offensive line of Ohio State.
Absolutely. All right. I believe we're at predictions, my friend.
You can go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. I've gone back and forth on this thing. I mean, they're basically predicting something like 31-10. Something like that is what they're thinking. 31-10 Ohio State. Get right out of here. I think that's insulting. I mean, Michigan at least gets to 17. I'll give them 21. I will say it is 31-21 Ohio State. Maybe doing a little bit of reverse jinx here, but at the same time, like, as much as I think a lot of what we said here today, like, this is not some gimme for Ohio State, and I agree, and Michigan can keep this very close. In a close game, do we have the offense to close it out, and that usually means a passing game late? Probably not. I can see it even being slightly closer, but I do think Ohio State, just better quarterback, also a good defense. I'll give it to them slightly, but, man, I think this is going to be a dogfight. I really do.
I've been so torn on this one. It's been back and forth. I've been really deliberating about how I feel about this, about trying to take out my own personal bias, what I see from film, what I see from like just a fandom perspective. And I'm similar. I'm 27-21 Ohio State. I think the Buckeyes will come out on top. I mean, begrudgingly so. But as Vance Bedford said on a pod recently, if this game's within 10 in the fourth quarter, just watch out for Ryan Day. Like, no one loves to get in their own way more than Ryan Day. And I know this Michigan team would love to step in the way. They're going to play free. They're going to play loose. They're going to play loose. They're going to take shots. Like, you might see a fake punt in this game. You might see a fake field goal in this game. They're going to leave it all on the table, and I hope they do. I don't just want to see a normal approach because this isn't a normal game. This is the biggest rivalry in sports. At minimum, you go 7-5. You beat Ohio State. You go to the Music City Bowl. You lose, you go to the Deuce Mayo Bowl. Like, it's okay either way. Like, this isn't – I mean, the season didn't pan out the way we expected it to, but you can still make it historic if you win this game. So get it close. Put the pressure on them. See if they can handle it. How can they be in these shoes? And we'll see what happens. I'm predicting an Ohio State win, but I'm kind of in your shoes. Reverse jinx in here because you know you and I are going to be in the fourth quarter of the this thing.
Oh, come on. I'll be locked in, Panther pose on the ground, growling at the screen like an absolute lunatic, as I always am. This will always mean something to us. It means something to us over here.
It's Ohio State.
Ohio State, Michigan.
Like, it's not just another game. I know I made the joke about the bowl games, but, like, this game is everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's the biggest rivalry in sports. It's super important. You know, I'll probably be there again next year.
Soon.
Like, together to watch this thing, it's not nothing. All the pressure's on them. Let's see if they crack.
Let's see if they do, my friend. Let's see what this team is made of. Let's see if Ryan Day's Botox can handle the stress, the pressure, the constant pulling and pushing. I wish him nothing but the worst. Andy, I wish you nothing but the best. Same to everyone that joined us today live. Much appreciation.
Join us on Bleacher Report.
Yes, absolutely. On Bleacher Report, we will be going live immediately following the game. We'll try to put all that up. And we will certainly let you know about our podcast. We will definitely be going live on Tuesday, as our podcast always does. That will come out next Tuesday, win, lose, or draw. Andy, it's always a pleasure, my friend, particularly in person. The juice is high. Thank you, Lewis, Kicking Chicken, Ty
Thank you
Wright. Y'all are the best. And cheers to you, my friend. Let's get this dub. I'm Jared. That's Andy. This is Out of Blue. We like to remind you that wherever you go, go blue.